What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I'm going to be doing a penetration test with my 4570 Marlin 1895, and I'm going to be shooting at some 16 gauge sheet metal. And the purpose of the test is to see how many sheets of 16 gauge sheet metal a 4570 government can penetrate through. And the rifle I'm going to be using is my Marlin 1895, and it has a 22-inch barrel, and I'm going to be using a wide variety of ammunition. So let me show you guys the ammunition I'm going to be using, and let me show you the rifle up close. And here we have one of the pieces of sheet metal I'm going to be using. Not this exact piece, but it's 16 gauge sheet metal, so it's a 1/16 of an inch thick. And I have a special jig that holds these sheets and spaces them out about 1.5 inches apart. So each one of these sheets of 16 gauge sheet metal are 1/16 of an inch thick, so they're pretty thick. This is heavy duty stuff. Now let me show you guys the ammo I'm going to be using. So I got a wide variety of ammunition here, pretty much any type of bullet you could imagine for the 4570. So we're going to test Xtreme Penetrators, Xtreme Hunters, bare loads, hollow points, and soft points, including some of the old Remington core-locked soft points that are very low pressure rounds. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to attach the true velocities that I've chronographed out of this 22-inch barrel Marlin 1895 to this video, so you can see the actual velocities and energies with these rounds versus what's advertised, because the advertised numbers are off on some of these rounds. So here we have the Underwood Ammo 305 grain Xtreme Penetrator. And this round is specifically made for penetrating through barriers. It's made of solid brass. All right. Then I'm going to be shooting some of the Xtreme Hunters, which are very similar to the Xtreme Penetrators, except the Xtreme Hunters are 325 grains versus the Xtreme Penetrators are 305 grains. So 20 grains heavier and made of copper instead of brass. And you can see they have a slightly different nose as well. You can see that the Xtreme Hunter has kind of a sharper nose, and the Xtreme Penetrator on the left here has a flatter nose. And here we have a Buffalo Bore 380 grain solid copper bullet. This is a flat nose bullet made for bear defense. This is one of the deepest penetrating 4570 rounds I've tested in other types of media. And for all of my 4570 videos, including penetration tests and velocity tests, check out my 4570 playlist. Here we have the Buffalo Bore 500 grain full metal jacket round, also a bare load. This is a special type of full metal jacket that has a really thick jacket. It's not like a typical ball ammo jacket, but it's a thick jacketed full metal jacket for dangerous game. Here we have an HSM 430 grain hard cast bare load, flat nose bullet made for penetration. Here we have the popular Hornady 325 grain lever evolution. This is a hollow point bullet. And here we have the Buffalo Bore 405 grain jacketed flat nose. Basically just a souped up version of the old school Remington core locked. Basically a high pressure version of the old Remington core locked. And then here we have the old Remington core locked. This thing is very low pressure, and this particular one is over 20 to 25 years old. I've done a video of me shooting these rounds. I purchased these rounds back in the early 2000s, and they still shoot excellent. The only thing with this Remington core locked is that it's extremely underpowered, It has a muzzle velocity of around 1,300 feet per second, but it seems to work really well. It still penetrates well. I've tested this in other media, and it's very accurate, and it kills deer. So still a very good round. So I'm going to attach all of the velocities and muzzle energies so you can see exactly what these rounds are capable of. So I want to show you guys the rifle I'm using. This is the Marlin 1895 4570. This is JM stamped, so I don't know when this thing was produced, but I'm assuming late 90s. I purchased this in the early 2000s, 2001, and this was the first rifle, the first real rifle I ever owned. So it has a lot of sentimental value. I have a Wild West Guns big loop lever. I have a Mason leather cartridge cuff. If you're interested in getting one like that, see the description below this video for a 10% discount. I absolutely love those Mason leather cartridge cuffs. I have several of them. They're made of leather and they hold the cartridges really well, not too tight, not too loose, just perfect. And I have this Burris Electro Dot handgun scope, and they actually discontinued this like 10 years ago, but it's a really awesome scope. So let's get started shooting and let's see what happens. How many sheets of sheet metal do you think the 4570 is going to penetrate through with all these different rounds? And if you want to see some of my other sheet metal penetration tests, check out my sheet metal penetration tests playlist. I'll leave a link to all these playlists in the top right corner of this video. So let's get started shooting. All right, guys. First shot's going to be with the Underwood ammo, 305 grain Xtreme Penetrator. Let's see what happens here. Alright guys, second shot is going to be with the Underwood ammo 325 grain Xtreme Hunter. Alright guys, third shot is going to be with the Buffalo Bore 380 grain mono metal. Alright guys, fourth shot is going to be with the Buffalo Bore 500 grain full metal jacket. Alright guys, fifth shot is going to be with the Buffalo Bore 405 grain jacketed flat nose. Alright guys, sixth shot is going to be with the HSM 430 grain hard cast. Alright guys, seventh shot is going to be with the Hornady 325 grain flex tip lever evolution. I had to take a second shot with the Hornady flex tip because I held a little bit too high and it skimmed the top, so I took a second shot. Alright guys, and last shot is going to be this 20-year-old 405 grain Remington core locked. I never chronographed this, but I'm guessing around 1300 feet a second. Alright guys, so here were my hits. I want to share with you the winners of the test. So the Buffalo Bore Full Metal Jacket 500 grain and the Underwood Ammo Extreme Hunter 325 grain are the winners. They penetrated through 9 sheets of 16 gauge sheet metal. And then right behind the Full Metal Jacket and the Extreme Hunter, we have the Buffalo Bore 380 grain monometal and the Underwood Ammo Xtreme Penetrator 305 grain. And those penetrated through 8 sheets. And then right after those, we have the Buffalo Bore 405 grain jacketed flat nose soft point. That one penetrated through 7 sheets. And then the losers were the HSM 430 grain hard cast and the Hornady 325 grain flex tip, and both of those only penetrated through 5 sheets. So let me show you guys the wound channels in the steel here. And this wound channel right here was from the first shot I took with the Hornady flex tip. The reason why I hit so high is because for some reason the Hornady flex tip groups like 3 inches lower than all the other ammo. So I was trying to hold it a little bit high so it would impact somewhere like right in this area. And it looks like I held just a little bit too high and I skimmed the top. And then my second shot, I just held it a little bit lower and I hit right where I wanted to. Okay, so check this out though. This is crazy. Look at that discoloration in the steel. So that's pretty crazy. And a lot of people in the comments on my previous sheet metal tests that I've done, they say that if I shoot the top of these sheets, it's not going to penetrate as much as if I shoot down here, because there's no support up here and the sheets flex. And I can tell you that that doesn't matter, because I've done multiple tests and I've shot the same rounds at the top and at the bottom, and they didn't have any difference at all. They both penetrated the same amount of sheet metal. So that doesn't matter. I mean, you can think of sheet metal as paper, basically. It doesn't matter if you're, supporting it here, or if you're just keeping it loose. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of like paper. It's more about the velocity of the bullet, not so much whether the steel is supported. So let me show you guys the wound channel. Let me show you the winners first. So here we had the 500 grain full metal jacket, and check out that wound channel through the steel. That is just crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, there's the 9th sheet right there. There's the exit hole from that full metal jacket. And then let's take a look at the other one. So here's our Xtreme Hunter hole. That one also penetrated through 9. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. And look at that exit hole from the Xtreme Hunter. Okay, just peeled off this huge chunk of steel. And look at the destruction from all these 45-70 rounds. Just absolutely mangled the sheet metal. Just absolutely crazy. Now let me show you guys the 380 grain mono metal. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then it just bounced off the 9th sheet right here. Okay. And then here's the Xtreme Penetrator. Check that out. Look at how the Xtreme Penetrator left this brass on the outside. That's pretty crazy. And just look down that wound channel. That's just insane. There's the Xtreme Hunter. There's the hard cast. There's the jacketed flat nose. All right, but let's look at the Xtreme Penetrator wound channel. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8, and then exited out here. Okay, look at this piece of metal there. It's pretty insane. So there's the Xtreme Penetrator. You can see that brass. All right, look at that wound channel there. It's just crazy. Crazy power. And then here's the jacketed flat nose 405 grain. Definitely didn't expect it to penetrate through 7 sheets. So here's the first sheet. There's the second sheet, third sheet, fourth sheet, fifth sheet, sixth sheet, 7th sheet. And then it just bounced off here. Okay, on the 8th sheet, it just bounced right off of it. Check out that exit hole. There's the wound channel from the jacketed flat nose. Look at that. Look at those massive holes. As that jacketed flat nose expanded, it just made massive holes in the sheet metal. And I'm going to take these apart and we'll take a closer look at all these sheets. And then here we have the Hornady flex tip. Pretty massive hole there. 2nd sheet, 3rd sheet, 4th sheet, 5th sheet, and then it bounced off the 6th sheet. But look at that hole. I mean, this hole is just insane. Look at that. Here's my thumb for comparison. It's just a massive hole. I can easily fit my thumb in there. Just punched right through it like a hole puncher. And then finally, here's our HSM 430 grain hard cast. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, left a pretty big exit hole. It's a little bit hard to see, and I was able to recover the bullets, so we'll take a closer look at these bullets, so stay tuned. All right guys, so here was my hit with that old Remington core locked 405 grain, over 20 years old, probably close to 25 years old. And let's see how many sheets it penetrated through. Looks like it went through 3 sheets. Pretty interesting. That's about the same amount of penetration as a 10mm Xtreme Penetrator or 44 Magnum Xtreme Penetrator. And got a slug down in there. So we're going to take a closer look at these at home. I'll show you guys the bullets up close. We'll weigh the bullets, see what kind of weight retention we got, so stay tuned. All right guys, so here are bullets. It was a little bit hard for me to distinguish between them. So here we have the HSM 430 grain hard cast. This is the only thing that I could find. You can see the bullet was basically blown apart. Check that out. Looks pretty crazy. So good amount of the bullet missing. Let's weigh it and see what kind of weight retention we got. So 304.8 grains, so lost a lot of weight. 125 grains. And here we have the Xtreme Penetrator. Look what happened to the Xtreme Penetrator. The nose just got completely flattened out, but still maintained most of its shape. This one is 305 grains normally. Let's see what it weighs. 289.2 grains, so pretty good. Lost about 15 grains. Here we have the Buffalo Bore 380 grain monometal. Look at how the nose was just completely flattened out. It's pretty crazy. It looks like someone took a hammer and just pounded on it and flattened it out. It's pretty insane. So let's weigh this guy. Wow, only lost about 6 grains. It's pretty impressive. And then here we have the 325 grain Xtreme Hunter. You can see the nose was flattened out quite a bit. Look at that. Wow. 319.1 grains, so only lost about 6 grains also. It's pretty impressive. And then here we have that 500 grain full metal jacket, and you can see this jacket is just super thick. Didn't lose any weight hardly at all. And there's a piece of sheet metal stuck to it. You can see there that sheet metal piece got fused to the nose. Pretty impressive. 541.8 grains, so it actually added 40 grains, and that's probably this piece of sheet metal here that's fused to the nose. And it would be impossible for me to get that off without really putting in a lot of elbow grease. It's basically welded to that bullet from the friction, so it's pretty impressive. And then here we have our jacketed bullets. It was a little bit difficult to distinguish between them, but I think I figured it out. So this is our 405 grain jacketed flat nose from Buffalo Bore. You can see it got flattened out basically like a silver dollar. Look at that, just totally flattened out. And then here's the jacket for it right there. Okay, so pretty interesting. So let's weigh this one. 311 grains, so almost lost 100 grains. That's to be expected. Here we have what's left of the Hornady 325 grain flex tip lever evolution. 179.6 grains, so it lost a lot of weight. And then here we have what I believe to be the Remington core locked. And I know it's the Remington core lock because you can see it didn't really flatten out like the Lever Evolution or the Buffalo Bore because it was traveling much slower. Okay, the impact velocity was much less on the Remington core locked, so it didn't flatten out and have that dramatic expansion. So let's weigh the Remington core locked. 307.3 grains, so lost about 100 grains. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my other sheet metal penetration tests. I'll leave a link in the top right corner. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.